How are we feeling out there? Good? How are we feeling out there? Yes, I like this energy. I like this energy. Many phenomenal conversations we've had, many more to come. Thank you all for being here again, and thank you for your energy and your enthusiasm. All right, up next, while they remix the stage, culture is everything around us. Everything we see, hear, feel, smell, taste, everything we choose to surround ourselves with. But brands that manage to enter the cultural conversation demand that they are presented in a bold and exciting new way. LDV Hospitality does it by embodying La Dolce Vita, the La Dolce Vita of its namesake, delivering its cocktail bars and summer clubs with thrilling modern flair. And then there's Liquid Death, which comes in a tall boy can with a melting skull logo, giving a new edge to the healthiest thing you can drink, mountain water, still and sparkling. These brands succeed by delivering what we already wanted on a silver platter. To lead the conversation, we have Dawn Davis, editor-in-chief of Bon Appetit and Epicurious. Here to let us in on their process are the founder and president of LDV Hospitality, John Meadow, and the senior vice president of marketing for Liquid Death, Dan Murphy. Welcome to the stage.
Hello. So great to be here with these two visionaries. You've already heard about all that they've accomplished and more to come. Of course, John Meadow is the founder, the visionary founder between LDV Hospitality Group. It includes some of our favorite restaurants, Scarpetta, Dolce Italiana, Number 8, and American Cut. And you're growing internationally as well, and I know we're all looking forward to hearing that. And of course, the Senior VP of Marketing at Liquid Death, one of the coolest brands around, Dan Murphy. So it's so great to be here with you guys. Both brands have undergone substantial growth since the pandemic, which is quite remarkable. And we'll be discussing their agile thinking, brand loyalty, community building, and authenticity, and how those specific things have informed their decision making. So let's get started. John, before you founded LDV, you had other jobs in the hospitality industry, so I'm wondering what was your path to get to the very top?
It's what I always wanted to do. And my first job, I was a dishwasher at Aubon Pan at 16 years old, and for some crazy reason I liked it. I went to the Cornell Hotel School to be educated in the realm, and I had one real job as a grown-up at the Plaza Hotel. I did that for 2 years, and I realized I was never going to have the opportunity to create. So in 2004, I was 24, and I went and opened the bar by Madison Square Garden. That worked. Then the next year, I opened the restaurant that I wanted to be fabulous, and it failed miserably. But then in that same failure down in the meatpacking district, we opened the first Scarpetta in that space in 2008, and thankfully that one worked. And from there, we built the business.
I remember as a former book editor, to take someone to Scarpetta was a real treat. It was like, you know, if you wanted to impress someone, you went to Scarpetta.
Thank you.
And Dan, you, before going to Liquid Death, had various jobs in marketing and advertising. You were at Google, you were at AT&T, some of the just top tier brands. So what did it take for you to make this leap to the beverage industry?
You know, it is a bit of a non-traditional path to find myself in brand marketing, because I was always on the digital or interactive side of things. Digital producer, digital operations, those sorts of things, playing around with machine learning at Google. But I think as we found now, it's difficult in this very fractured information ecosystem to reach people except but for a screen or through a screen. So understanding a bit of the piping, the data to see if it's working has been a good skill, even in CPG beverage.
So I'm wondering about, like, say specifically on going from kind of screens and tapping into people and reaching them. What are some of the decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis? Because you do video, you do real-life activations. I understand you kind of go wherever the people are. So how do you make that transformation from beyond digital? What's the impetus there?
Well, we're trying to make healthy beverages 50 times more fun. So everything we do has to be fun, shareable, have a headline to it. We don't have the dollars that the big boys have, so we need to make the people want to share it and talk about what we do. And, interactive right now and digital is kind of the air we breathe. It's been that for a while. So being on social and having very shareable assets is, just core and part of our strategy.
I want to talk to you, John, about growing since the pandemic in an industry that has really seen so much diminishment. And you've gone in the opposite direction. You're expanding. I want to hear about your global expansions and how do you kind of make that leap?
The global effort was something that we always wanted to do. We opened in 2019 in London at the Bulgari Hotel. And it was a fascinating, stimulating experience for us to go abroad and be exposed to a totally different type of community environment. And certainly came with challenges, but we liked it. Then comes the pandemic, and there was certainly a retraction for us before going forward, and we were effectively forced to close 3 stores and reshape aspects of our identity in every regard, and that was a very tough thing. I'm not a cutthroat, tough businessman. I'm really not. I'm more too romantic for my own good. So these stores, maybe we never would have closed. Now you don't have a choice, and you're really forced to take a hard look at yourself. Remember, my wife said, well, what are you going to do if everything is over? I said, I want to open a pizzeria. That's something I always wanted to do, and I wouldn't otherwise do it. And that conviction and clarity of this is the business that we love, and this is the group of people on our team that we love, and to go forward with it. Now you have to be a little bit more disciplined and focused and say, okay, Scarpetta has always been the brand. Since 2008, we were nominated James Beard Foundation Best New Restaurant in the country. We've always found our success there. We're proud of our others, but let's run. And in a time of world retraction, but still already committed, interesting international hotel projects, we found opportunity. So we opened last year at the Waldorf Astoria in Doha, in a mixed-use development where the Edition is in Tokyo. In 3 weeks or so, we'll open in Rome, and iconic Via Veneto, as we said before, the name of our company, LDV, stands for La Dolce Vita. This happened on this very street 65 years ago, so that's certainly the Super Bowl for us. And then next year, we'll do the 4 Seasons in Rio de Janeiro. So a lot of international growth, and we feel very privileged and blessed. Part of that COVID clarity was focus on your passion. And, my people and some of those specific cities, Rio, Rome, Tokyo, these are my 3 favorites in the world, always have been. So to be able to open there really is a privilege, and I think you find good business in my profession when you're passionate to give that love and that push. So I think being able to finally focus allows us to grow at a higher velocity.
That makes sense. And Dan, when I walk into a supermarket and I see the water aisle, I am overwhelmed by choices. And so how did you decide that there was room for growth in this particular industry, and that you had a strategy to not only disrupt it, but to really be aggressive and grow?
So I have this advertising background. And they always talk about a brand muse. Who is that person? And in something like water, it was always the same. It was a healthy yoga mom. The aesthetic was slightly feminine. It was about purity. There wasn't party water with a subversive edge and aggressive packaging called liquid death. And I'm blessed and very fortunate to be an early investor in the company, even though I've just worked there in my current role for 1.5 years, but I've had my eye on it from day one. And I remember seeing it going, if this works, this is a huge bet where nobody else is. And, being one of the fastest growing CPG beverage brands of all time, I think it has worked for us.
And you're expanding. So I understand that you have introduced an iced tea and some success with that.
We did, to say the least. I mean, yeah, we're a healthy beverage brand. Everything we're trying to do is get people to make better choices for themselves and the planet in a fun way, with fun marketing. So we started with still water in a can. We were one of the first to do it, and now there's plenty of others, and we welcome that. Death to plastic is part of our mission for sure. We moved into flavored sparkling, very low calorie. It's kind of like a healthy soda. And last month, we got into iced tea and broke Amazon on day one. drove so much traffic so quick it tripped an algorithmic circuit breaker of some sort. And they thought we were out of stock, but we weren't. And then we're back in, and then we actually were out of stock and sold out. And I believe we're back up right now. So
That is
give it a
such
try.
a nice luxury problem to have, right? Let's talk about brand identity and voice, because they're very unique for both brands. How do you effectively communicate to your respective audiences in different ways that you are expanding, that you're international, that you're different, and yet you are at the core the same? And as you kind of expand into, now iced tea, how do you keep that cool edge while also innovating?
The stock answer is authenticity. And people say it like it's some Harry Potter spell. It's like, give me some of that authenticity. But I think most brands truly are kind of bland, kind of boring. And at Liquid Death, it is truly who we are, is how we show up in the world. I mean, we have people on the payroll from, pro skateboarders and musicians and adult film industry, and we're trying to always have comedy as our DNA. So we have writers from Adult Swim and comedians. Like, we are actually the people we show up to be, and it's pretty resonant with a certain audience out there in the real world.
So your HR policy is specifically to kind of hire, no, I'm serious, because I believe that diversity in the room can show up in many ways. And some of it's obvious, and some of it is, generational. Some of it's obviously what you've done before. And so that's a very specific profile you're looking for. How do you know that someone's got what you're looking for?
It's a very small, kind of tight-knit group. I mean, our entire marketing group or creative department is probably smaller than your agency's account team servicing your business. So, we all get to know folks that are brought in, so that, there's certainly that element of it. And it's really just looking for the right people for the job. Again, like I said, we try to put humor into a lot of what we do, so we look to people that are funny and have made their way being funny.
That makes sense. What about you, John? In terms of voice, keeping that voice consistent yet innovating at the same time?
I think staying true to your core value system, right? So when we talk about La Dolce Vita in this old world, nostalgic hospitality adopted for today, that doesn't come with much Instagram gimmicks, right? And we don't build restaurants built for the Instagram gimmick. But as an example, last night, bringing in a community of wonderful people and having an iconic Patti LaBelle come and sing, it doesn't get more authentic than that. And Dan hit the nail on the head. Authenticity resonates, especially in a restaurant experience. You try the gimmick one time, do you go back to that next fresh gimmick funky thing? Oh, it's so interesting. When people say the restaurant, oh, I went to Scarpetta, it was so interesting, it breaks my heart. You can eat with your head or you eat with your heart. When you offer an experience transmitted of love with true authenticity, whether it's corny or not, that's the meal that a guest eats with their heart, and they come back for that. And then I think, so product-wise, you stay true. And that's the people, that's the design, that's the deals that you do. And I, unfortunately, in my roller coaster of an entrepreneurial realm, I've made plenty of mistakes with that in doing kind of transactional deals as opposed to really staying disciplined about what do we stand for, has brought me, nothing but distress, frankly. Whereas when we stay true, we get the results. And now with Instagram and all the other forms of digital communication, we have this opportunity in our own explicit voice to communicate who we are and what we're doing.
Speaking of the internet, Dan, Liquid Death has become known for unexpected collaborations and for winning the internet. So how has this brand been able to do that without exhausting its audience, without being overexposed?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have a Saturday Night Live model where we've created this weird, wild universe, and we can bring celebrities that are relevant in the culture or brands into it and do something unexpected. Martha Stewart chopping off hands to make severed hand candles, probably not very expected. We had, a comedian, Bert Kreischer, known for being a bigger guy with his shirt off, might not be the spokesperson for a workout video, you would think, right? So as long as we're able to play with culture in that way, we can always be relevant. I mean, SNL's been on the air for 40, 50 years at this point, so we hope to do the same.
And I know that AI came up in a previous panel. Are you, and there's TikTok, and there's just every new form that you have to kind of be relevant on. So how are you guys thinking about future formats, What's next?
Well, I mean, I believe we're the second most followed brand, beverage brand anyway, on TikTok. So it's a function of going where the people are. Where are the eyeballs and attention? And TikTok was an emerging platform as we were. We were there. We're certainly on social media for that reason, but we're beyond that. I mean, we have an amazing lifestyle team that gets out in the real world.
Tell us about some of your real world activations. Like, what does that really look like on the ground?
Yes, I mean, we're the official water of Live Nation venues and festivals. I couldn't imagine a better place to have people experience this for the first time. They're hot, they're on a high, they're surrounded by their friends, they're documenting the whole thing on social media. I mean, it is also, I mean, sure, like the restaurant, you have to experience it. I mean, we're not selling a digital product at the end of the day. So there is the crack of the can. There's holding a thing that's not a crinkly plastic bottle of water in a party environment that feels better, feels cooler. It looks wild. It starts conversations. Try it at your next PTA meeting. People will ask you about it, perhaps.
I would love to do that. John, backstage you talked about you love the mistakes, that it's fun to talk about the openings and the travel, but it's the mistakes that have really taught you the most. So share with us one of the mistakes, apart from kind of doing things that weren't authentic, because you've shared that.
I always say restaurants fail for lacking vision, lacking capital, and insecurity. And I think the insecurity and the vision often kind of counterbalance with each other. And I've certainly made all of those mistakes. I have too many stories of that to tell. I think that first real restaurant I did back in 2005, I put everything into that restaurant. I think it was the most beautiful restaurant I ever did. I loved that restaurant. But I didn't have the money to do it. So we opened up $1 million in debt and financing and the whole, and from there, that was a fascinating effort and hole to get out of.
And do you think it's important for restaurants to keep doing what they did during the pandemic, which is to find other streams of income, whether that's like Gold Belly or selling olive oils in front of house, or what are you looking now in terms of diversifying streams of income, and how important is that?
I don't think it's that important. It depends on your type of restaurants. For what we do for the full service restaurant experience, it's really about the fulsome experience. What is important, what we realized through all of those efforts of delivery and modified product and making Negronis to go in advance and everything, was that every bit of connecting the brand above and beyond the four-walled restaurant experience to the consumer, that's impactful. And so now we're doing a lot more pop-ups. For just last month, we did a wonderful one in upstate New York in the Deer Mountain Inn. It was just fabulous. And we're doing one in the end of the year in Italy, in the Mediterranean, for a seafood concept that we're planning to launch. So I think that it forced us out of our comfort zone, but the revenue model still is the restaurant. It's just how do you maintain that relevance is by, very much as what Dan was describing, these moments of activation and finding a way to connect with the audience outside of the four walls.
And Dan, what about mistakes from your perspective? You guys are funny. You're where the people are. You've had amazing success. Surely you've had some mistakes along the way.
Well, we have a few things in place to avoid mistakes.
Okay.
And I think what a normal brand would do. I mean, we love working with celebrities and other brands. And I think when it comes to the celebrity side of things, we have a gating function that few do. And that is, instead of us writing you a check, you write us a check. So you must invest in Liquid Death with your own dollars. And then as a brand ambassador for the content we create, we'll give you a little extra equity. So I think there was many people super excited about Liquid Death that wanted along for the ride. But when that deal was in front of them, they said, nah. So they weren't actually down and passionate and authentically loved Liquid Death. So I think that's been good for us to avoid a few mistakes.
That's a fantastic idea, I would think. I mean, because the issue, of course, with celebrities is if they are suddenly kind of canceled, your brand can suffer, right? And so to be too reliant on them can also be a problem.
Yeah, and kind of like that SNL model, you bring somebody in, it's their moment, maybe they come back in a future season. I think when it comes to being canceled, I think people don't understand what we're up to. We're not this edgy brand that's there for shock value. We walk a creative tightrope where 2 degrees this way is actually horribly offensive, and 2 degrees that way is lame and boring. So it's a different kind of mission to kind of hit the bullseye, so to speak, for us.
Dan, what are some of the most successful campaigns that you have done? The Martha Stewart one was very funny.
It was super fun. I mean, one of our early great hits was the Tony Hawk Blood Board. We took Tony Hawk's blood, painted skateboards, sold them. A lot of our, Martha Stewart with the candles. We recently did a fun video with Jalen Green from the NBA where, we created a severed head basketball, and it was, again, weird, wild, adult swimmy, like kind of a riff on 90s toy commercials. There's something about this ephemeral internet content and making it real and purchasable, and everything we do being really real. I mean, we had a bunch of internet haters, and we invited them out, and they said we were the worst water ever, and we said, okay, if you can blind taste test us, choose us as the worst water, we'll give you $1,000. If not, we will tase you. And that was really real. That letter was a great one to write to the lawyers. That was,
Yeah, I'm interested in what the decision-making process in both of your outfits looks like, because you have these kind of cool, funny, former adult movie people making, suggestions and decisions. You've got lawyers. You've got a whole mix of people. So who makes the final decision, and what's that risk assessment look like for you guys?
I mean, we certainly have some third rails. And the great thing is, being brand-led, we have a CEO and a CMO in the same body, our CEO and co-founder, Mike. So he's a great arbiter. But we also have a good team of people that, again, are not looking to offend people. We're looking to be funny and provocative. And we deal in things like cartoon violence, not real violence. There's a nuance to what we do so that we don't go over the line. And, so far, so good.
I want to talk about, because we said that authenticity is important. We said community building is important to both of your brands. How do you build, so in magazines, I work at Bon Appetit, and we have people who love to make comments on the recipes, and that becomes a kind of community, right? So how do you, John, in your restaurants, build a community of people who are loyal to your brands? Who are like, I don't know, I've got relatives coming, I've got friends coming, it's date night, I know I want to go to this because I know I'm going to get X, right? I want to go to Scarpetta, I want to go to Dolce.
I mean, I think one of the singular, most definitive elements of the guest experience that we look to cultivate is a warmth connection between the service staff and the guest. And we were talking about hiring earlier. We very proudly do not hire a type. Our whole ethos is hire people with a certain amount of conviction and character and empower them to show their true generic self. That translates to the table, and with that, what people will always say about our restaurants, it doesn't have to be the best food, it doesn't have to be the coolest, but it's always a warm experience. That's what people come back for. And I think that's just this defining element that we have to work constantly to cultivate. And even with technology, with CRM, this constant investment in understanding the guest, their preferences. If you go to Scarpetta in New York City tonight, and then you go out to Montauk over the weekend, we know what wine that you had. And when you sit down, wow, you had this Grand Cru tonight, why don't you try this other one, right? And I think everyone says Big Brother watching is so off-putting, but not in a restaurant.
Right.
In a restaurant, when you walk in and they know your preferences, they know where you like to sit, they know that you're left-handed, and therefore to sit the guest on the other side of the room, and every little detail translates to this tailor-made, customized service that people really appreciate.
And what about you, Dan? Community building.
I think there's a really interesting bit of in-group, out-group psychology we've tapped into. I think it's kind of core to who we are as a species, right? And a lot of brands are great at saying, oh, this is who we are, this is who we are. And they forget to say who they're not. So we're not for people that take themselves too seriously, that aren't in on the joke. Life is tough and stressful, so we're looking to bring a little bit of comedy to that. We give people flags to fly. Our merch business is fantastic. We do drops just about every week. And, again, we're looking at kind of creating this, cult of fans and followers that support us.
Such a cool model. I guess my last question is, you and your brands know what you are and what you're not, and you seem laser focused on serving a specific audience. So what advice would you give folks in the room about who are looking to, find their audience and then service them with a laser focus?
I think once you define your philosophy, your ethos, and your core product, thereafter define the growth strategy that works for you to achieve that, as opposed to just reacting to that the universe presents. I think it's fundamental to be willing to engage with and be opportunistic with things that come your way, but staying on your path that you find with your conviction, trusting your gut as opposed to every business is different, but the gut still has to come first. And then you creating your own strategy as opposed to the world dictating it for you allows you to achieve that authenticity.
I find that to be true. And I want to give a shout out for, as busy as this man is, traveling all over the world, opening restaurants all over the world, he is taking his daughter to Tokyo because she loves anime for 10 days. That's like hashtag dad of the year.
Thank you. I love it too there. So.
Dan.
You know, my advice is it's really, really tough right now to get somebody's attention. You know, we've got these little flashing dopamine slot machines in our pockets, like people can't even watch TV without them. So if you're not doing something to break through, if you're not doing something different, it's going to be an uphill climb. So, you know, I echo what you say. I mean, you know, find your convictions, find what you're about. You know, we're about murdering your thirst and bringing an end to single-use plastic and doing it in a fun way and making healthy beverages 50 times more fun. Whatever your thing is, stay true to that and find a way to do it that's unique.
I love that. And I think what's important about your mission is it's not just like the clever slogan and the really clever marketing, but the single-use plastic is huge. You kind of hit the zeitgeist as well, and you're doing it in a fun way. You're having fun with your brand. So thank you
No doubt.
both for sharing all your insights with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ralph?
It's fantastic. Thank you so much. We're going to take a 10-minute break. I'm going to murder my thirst. I'm going to think about how I ate with all of my heart last night at Scarpetta. That branzino was delicious. And we'll be back in 10 minutes. So take a break, murder your thirst, and then return. See you soon.